Good morning and welcome to Woodlawn United Church's worship moment for April the 15th, Wednesday. I want to begin today by passing on some condolences. A few days ago, one of our members, St. Clair Bezanson, passed away, and I'd like to extend my sympathy and condolences to the family of St. Clair and to acknowledge how it must be especially difficult in this particular time to try to grieve and to mourn a loved one. Indeed, a few weeks ago, someone said to me, we need to name some of the feelings that we're feeling in this particular time. And I think one of them that all of us are feeling to a certain extent, and even more so for those who've lost loved ones, is sadness. There is a lot of sadness around right now because of all the losses that we're experiencing. Celebrations and events that we planned had to be canceled. Um, we can't be with our loved ones to give them a hug or to actually be with them. Um, all of us are feeling a pretty profound sense of loss and sadness right now. And in one of these future Wednesdays, I'm going to be addressing that, I think. But today, I want just to reaffirm that we are in the season of Easter. Easter is more than just a day, it's a season. And that uh, we're in the season of hope and resurrection. And sometimes that resurrection kind of comes right away, and sometimes it takes a while. The disciples actually, in Luke's accounting of it, actually had 40 days where they kind of gradually came to the realization that the risen Christ was with them. And so I'm thinking kind of like we're in one of those situations right now, where, especially for those of us who've lived a good life and haven't been experiencing pain and suffering a lot in our lives, there's a lot of sadness, and yet we can have hope. Hope that there is new life coming for us and for the world. So, today I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk to you about the importance of the truth, and how a lot of the time we just don't want to hear it and we don't want to believe it. All of us have a lot harder time with the truth than we would like to admit, especially when it keeps us from doing what we want to do. Now, especially in the Gospel of John, Jesus is not only called the way and the life, but he's called the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. And in terms of sin, John's main understanding of sin all the way through his gospel is the refusal to believe the truth, the refusal to believe the truth in particular about Jesus being the Messiah, but the refusal to believe the truth. When Jesus is standing in front of Pilate and being interrogated, and Pilate is looking for a way to justify his crucifixion, Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. You don't have to worry, or my followers would rise up and try to protect me. And Pilate just hears one word. Have we ever seen anybody that just hears one word and takes off on it? Pilate says, so you are a king, then you have a kingdom. And Jesus says, you say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone who sides with the truth listens to me. And then in his cynicism, this political leader says, well, what is truth? People in power often think they get to decide what is true. And maybe sometimes from some people's perspective that's true. But really, do they? In the last few years, we've been asked to deny what we've clearly seen and heard. I've never even heard the term gaslighted before this last little while. But we're told that the news is fake, that we can't believe our own eyes and ears. And this has kind of made us question and doubt even our own senses. And all of this has happened so clearly south of the border, but even here in Canada. In some ways, one of the reasons why I think Donald Trump makes us so mad is that he is, unsubtle, to say the least, about something that we all kind of do. We prefer our myths and illusions about who we are, and so that we don't have to make the changes we need to make in order to live in God's world in a just and fair way. So I tend to fluctuate during this time right now between being terrified when I listen to reports of how COVID-19 is spread and what it can be, uh, but then on the other hand, I look at the statistics about here in Nova Scotia, and I think, well, maybe it's not that bad, and I can really go out and do what I want to do. I have to work at resisting the temptation to define the truth so that it lets me do what I want it to do, what I want to do. As I've been watching this soap opera play out in the United States, I can't help but notice how the president seems to fire anyone who dares to tell him something that he doesn't want to hear. And he certainly doesn't want the press holding him accountable or even asking him questions. And all this stuff is a matter of life and death right now. People are taking bets on how long Dr. Fauci will last, on how long it will be, or until how long it will be until he caves to the pressure not to disappoint the president because he wants to keep his job. After all, he's human too. And I think of Fox News and those who care more about their investments than people's lives, and how that voice is the one that gets the president's attention. I think of some of the religious leaders who call Trump the anointed one and telling him that God's going to save everybody by a miracle, and that these social restrictions need to be lifted not only so they can worship, but so the economy can get back on track. And that's the kind of voices that he listens to. And as I see all this play out, it reminded me of the prophet Amos, a true prophet, and his debate and discussion and argument with you, if you will, with the prophet Amaziah, who was the king's paid prophet, as recorded in the book of Amos. It reminds us once again how relevant the Bible is to what's going on in our daily lives today. Let me read you from Amos chapter 7, verses 10 through 17. Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent a message to Jeroboam, who was the king of Israel, and he said, Amos is raising a conspiracy against you in the very heart of Israel. The land cannot bear all his words. For this is what Amos is saying. Jeroboam, you are going to die by the sword, and Israel will surely go into exile away from this native land. Then Amaziah said to Amos, Get out of here, you seer. Go back to the land of Judah. Earn your bread down there and do your prophesying there. Don't prophesy any more here at Bethel, because this is the king's sanctuary and the temple of the kingdom. Well, Amos answered Amaziah, I am neither a prophet nor a prophet's son, but I was a shepherd, and I also took care of sycamore fig trees. But the Lord took me from tending my flock and said to me, Go prophesy to my people Israel. Now then, hear the word of the Lord. You say, Do not prophesy against Israel. Stop preaching against the descendants of Isaac. Therefore, this is what the Lord says. Your wife will become a prostitute in the city, and your sons and daughters will fall by the sword. Your land will be measured and divided up, and you yourself will die in a pagan country. And Israel will surely go into exile away from their native land. That's the end of the reading. You see, kings and rulers have always had their false prophets, their yes men, telling them what they want to hear. But thank God there has always been true prophets around who actually tell the truth, even at the risk of their own lives. They speak out and tell the truth to power. Yesterday I was reading in the book of Deuteronomy the way to tell a true prophet from a false one, and really you can only do it by looking back in hindsight, when we see whether the prophecy comes true or not. And Amos's prophecy came true. Israel was indeed conquered and as a people taken off into exile, as he forewarned. And, prophets always usually have a conditional message. If Israel, you do what you're supposed to do, then this will happen. But if you don't, this is going to happen, And who knows what would have happened if King Jeroboam and Amaziah and all the others had listened to Amos and made the changes for justice that God was demanding. So my prayer today is that our premiers and our prime minister will continue to listen to the science, to the scientists here in Canada, and not people like Dan Dix, I think his name was, and his bunch of followers in Vancouver a few days ago, who were out protesting, telling us that the science was all fake news and that social distancing didn't matter. You know, the truth does matter. Pray that our leaders listen to it. Pray that we listen to it. Pray that we use this crisis as well as an opportunity to see our interconnectedness with all people and all creation, especially the poor and the most vulnerable among us, and make changes as we move back into what we call normal. The time has come when we need to cut through the lies that justify not only what we want to do, but our privilege out of we should be doing it out of love and compassion. And now we can see that if we don't do it for that reason, we need to at least do it out of self-interest, because this virus and climate change and all the other things that are the product of injustice don't stop at our gated communities. So may God be with us as we listen to and heed the truth. Okay. God bless you. Go about your day.